This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. There's nothing sweeter than baking cookies during the holidays. With Prime, I get all my ingredients delivered right to my door, fast and free, no last-minute store trips needed. And of course, I blast my favorite holiday playlist on Amazon Music. It's the ultimate soundtrack for creating unforgettable memories. From streaming to shopping, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into.
Okay, I have to tell you, I was just looking on eBay where I go for all kinds of things I love, and there it was.
That hologram trading card. One of the rarest, the last one I needed for my set. Shiny like the...
designer handbag of my dreams. One of a kind. eBay had it, and now everyone's asking, ooh, where'd you get your...
windshield wipers. eBay has all the parts that fit my car. No more annoying, just beautiful.
Whatever you love, find it on eBay. eBay. Things people love.
But my baby, she don't want me no more.
All right, Matt, we are here talking about Running with Scissors, the second track, the first original on this. My Baby's in Love with Eddie Vedder. The Wikipedia simply says that My Baby's in Love with Eddie Vedder is a style parody of Zydeco. Is that how that's pronounced?
Zydeco.
About a man's frustration that his girlfriend is obsessed with Eddie Vedder, the lead singer of the grunge band Pearl Jam. This was one of those songs. I think that this is a song that we can categorize kind of similarly to like Stuck in a Closet with Vanna White, or even She Never Told Me She Was a Mime. A little bit in just like similar kind of theme, like romantic woe with the My Baby. She Never Told Me She Was a Mime, and like random celebrity name just kind of tossed into it with the Stuck in a Closet with Vanna White. And similar to those, this was a song that I disliked when I first heard it. But unlike those other two, where doing the show, I was like, actually, like neither of these songs is very bad. I came around to this song a lot quicker, where I was like, actually, this song's pretty good. Like, and I think part of it is like knowing more about, I didn't know that the genre was called, Zydeco, but like understanding like, oh, this is a Creole kind of like, he's doing an homage to a very specific type of song. I was just like, this is so weird. Why is he doing this like rock song with just a random accordion that feels sort of out of place a little bit? Like, but now I'm like, oh, this is brilliant. It's brilliant. It's funny. It's catchy. It's all those things.
It's also just now, we as we've gone through this catalog, we talked several times about how in his first record, it's just accordion everywhere. Yeah. There's so much accordion. And he's so known as an accordion player. And as the years go on, with the exception of the polkas, you hear less and less accordion. There are so many songs where whole records where it feels like it's just not represented at all. And in terms of an original song that features the accordion, this is the most accordion feature thing we've had in years. Yeah, because I would say the only non-polka that even jumps to my mind is the solo in Syndicated Incorporated, but it's just the solo. It's not the rest of the song. Yeah, he added some accordion to Syndicated. He added some accordion to Headline News. There's some accordion in Achy Breaky Song, I think. But it's not like those are parodies, and it's not the focus of the song. No. It's not the highlight. Like, no, this is the song. This is an accordion jam. This is legitimately, and I'm sure that there's video out there. Maybe I've even seen video out there. There's a world where Al doesn't need the rest of the band for this song. Like, this song would work as just Al solo with an accordion, similarly to how we had seen him really biff it on Regis and Kathy Lee doing Achy Breaky Song. Like, it's so it is the most predominant instrument in the song by a mile. Like, I couldn't tell you what the guitar's doing in this song, and like the drum and the bass is kind of just holding a very standard beat for the accordion to shine. So it's like, everyone's just kind of falling into the background for the accordion, and that's a good thing to me. Like, that is not, I'm not complaining in any way about that. No, even if we're not even talking about lyrics yet, we're just talking about this as a piece of music, and for me, this is super, super fun. I do remember hearing this as a kid and being sort of not disliking it, like being into it right away, even though I felt like I didn't appreciate the lyrical references he was making.
That's
in
what
it
I
quite
think
as
my
much.
problem was. I
too
was a
young,
lyric
but-
kid back in the day, and I was like, I will say this. This is my one thing that I will say is that I feel like 99 we're starting to run a little late for Eddie Vedder references at that point. Like,
yes,
like that. I think is the biggest strength.
Here's an interesting. I know we're on song 2 of the record here, but this is not something we've talked about yet. So I think this is an interesting album for Al because this falls. I mean, okay, the Saga Begins, first single off the record, first song on the record, is once again Al doing a Jurassic Park and pulling something from deep history and doing a parody of American Pie and not something of the moment. He's talking about a movie of the moment. And now this song is so out of... This is a genre pull from... This is not pop radio at all.
No.
What I'm really getting at here is that this record came out at a time where we are mid-musical transition once again. And sometimes, like, you know how Al waited on Off the Deep End to get the Nirvana track?
Yeah.
And he got that, but then the rest of the album feels so different from that because that was all recorded before this explosion of a new act and new movement. This whole album feels like it happened just before that actually occurred.
Yeah.
Because we're in 1999 and we are... At this point, Backstreet Boys have made like at least 2 records, maybe 3. I think Britney Spears' first record comes out in 99. Like, we are approaching this massive pop boom, but you wouldn't know it listening to this album.
No.
It's just not there.
But like the flip side of that is I would actually say that he was still a little behind. Like you said, like Britney Spears may have already had Hit Me Baby One More Time and was getting ready for Oops, I Did It Again. I think what's interesting, and we'll dive into this much deeper when we get there, but like the polka on this, the more timely thing would have been the next polka that he did, which was the Angry White Boy polka, because 1999 is like pinnacle of nu metal, just like destroy. It's the only things on the radio were nu metal and pop prince, like bubblegum pop. There was
exactly.
So like a lot of this, like we're going to talk about a Nine Inch Nails style parody that also feels weirdly out of date with with everything else. Like,
yeah,
like there's those little bits and pieces where you're like, man, you really like you were so close. Like,
but I get for an album that came out in June of 1999,
he couldn't
it's
have
like,
known. Like
there's no way. I mean, this was one of those things that again, it was just like, so that's all. That's more about the record as a whole. But
because he's even getting
there's something
ska
interesting
song
about this
in there, just as ska's running out of like
exactly. Yeah, and yeah, a lot of the references here. You're right. Like the fact that in Polka Power we get every Backstreet's Back comes up in Polka Power, but didn't make it as an actual parody. He waits until Poodle Hat to do I Want It That Way, which then by that point feels way too old.
Yeah.
Like this is an interesting moment, and it makes me reflect
on his new
Al's
decisions of not
exactly like the idea of like I can't like in the late 90s it was way easier to predict these sorts of things and still not really possible. Like, I mean, he tried and so many times he really nailed it, but like it's getting harder as these years go on for him to put out a full album of material that feels relevant just because things are changing fast.
It honestly makes me think about even the album cover because it does feel like he is running a race. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Like he's just like trying his best to get in there. Let's talk about the lyrics here. I think that this is one that we can just break down the lyrics. So he says, "Oh, my baby, she don't want me no more. Ever since she saw his poster on that record store. She says the way he grinds his molars is really sexy. She thinks he's so darn dysfunctional and Generation Xy," which I love. That is a great lyric. She likes his brooding angst and his wild-eyed stare. Yeah, he's her very favorite slacker multimillionaire.
Yes.
I'm curious what you think about this, because I also think that there's an element of like Eddie Vedder being a weird person for this to be about. In one hand, I get it, because like he is like the sexy singer of the grunge movement.
Yes.
Right. Like
he was also more mainstream. Like I think Pearl Jam played with the mainstream more than a lot of other bands.
They probably did. Like, there's elements of that.
If you're talking about like just the sexy singer, I think Chris Cornell probably would have qualified for a lot of people as well, but I don't think they had quite the same amount of, I mean, also let's be real, maybe it was just the rhyme potential of Vedder.
Vedder. I mean, that's what I
was
think
better
it is
for him.
I think that's what it is, because I was going to say this is going to be such a weird thing to complain about. But like, I feel like some of the things that he's describing Eddie Vedder as doesn't actually fit Eddie Vedder. Like, I don't think that Eddie Vedder has ever been looked at as dysfunctional. You know what I mean? Like, he's like,
and maybe that's, I agree with you. And maybe that's part of the joke, is that this guy just doesn't get it.
Just doesn't get it at all. Like,
it's possible.
Because he's kind of the guy who's most. I remember hearing a story. I'm not sure if you ever heard this story where like, he just happened to be walking to a record store when they were having a sale and were shorthanded, and just was like jumped behind the counter and worked for free for a couple of hours at like a local. And this was like years after 10. Like, this was like Eddie Vedder didn't need to do anything, but was just like, oh, the record store is struggling. Let me help him out. Like, he just always seems like the down to earth one of the grunge movement. So I'm like, man, this is kind of interesting that this is
well, especially now. I mean, now when you look at the grunge bands, like, they really just drop like flies, man. I mean, like, Eddie Vedder now seems like the most stable dude in the world compared to, I mean, so many of those guys died tragically and young. They all died. I mean, it's really incredible.
He's the last,
how few survived.
Yeah, he's the last living, and unless you count Smashing Pumpkins as grunge, he's the last living frontman of a massive 90s grunge band. Like, we lost Lane Staley, we lost Kurt, we lost Chris Cornell, we lost Scott Weiland. Like, that's insane. But anyway, and again, in 1999, Al couldn't have known that. I mean, this was just I have to chalk it up to the fact that it was just the easiest name to throw into this let's
song.
dive in the chorus, because it's my baby's in love with Eddie Vedder. She's all crazy about that Eddie Vedder. Once she was mine, now I better just forget her, because my baby's in love with Eddie Vedder. And we do have to shout out, I'm doing no service reading this. The way that he sings stuff like, she's so crazy about that Eddie Vedder. Like, it's
a real showcase. For Al, this is a showcase across the board, vocally and on the accordion. Man, he is just... He is showing off and having a really good time doing it, which, again, is just delightful to me. Like, even if I hated the lyrics to this song, I think I still would get a lot of enjoyment out of these sides of it.
Yeah.
But I don't hate the lyrics. I have to point out, just before we get too far away from it, on Genius.com, someone pointed this out, and I love the Genius annotations sometimes because they're so ridiculous. On the line that she thinks he's so darn dysfunctional and Generation X-y, somebody noted that babies from Generation X were born between 1965 and 1980. Eddie Vedder was born in December of 1964, which technically makes him a baby boomer. I was like, guys, December of 64 means he doesn't count as Gen X. The idea that would be the case is so funny to me.
So funny to me.
As a correction of Al's lyrics. So sorry about that, guys.
All right, second verse. Now every time I see him, well, he looks so grim. I guess it really must suck to be a rock star like him. What a pain in the butt to have so much success, spending all his time moping and avoiding the press. But my girl can't get enough of his sullen demeanor. That's like, he's some tortured genius and I'm some kind of wiener. Like, what
Again,
a line.
That's a great line. Great line. And it's excellent.
But then
you get another chorus
with a change here. He says, she's got a thing for that Eddie Vedder. Tell me what he can do that I can't do better. Well, now my baby's in love with that Eddie Vedder. Head over heels for that Eddie Vedder.
I can't believe it. Now she's knitting him a sweater. Another funny visual I like.
And then we get this bridge. I want to say it was, well, we were heading for disaster when she caught me hanging out at the Ticketmaster. Now she's got an unrequited love adoration for the frustrated, agitated, designated, alienated spokesman for the disaffected grunge generation. I'm reading this on my phone, like so far away.
I know. I didn't say, frustrated, agitated, designated, alienated spokesman for the disaffected grunge generation.
Brilliant. Like, this song, it's crazy to me that I didn't like the song when I first heard it, but like now I'm like, this is one of lyrically his best songs. Like, he is pulling some great jokes out. He's pulling some great rhyme schemes out. And he's having fun with a genre that only he could pull off. Like, this is such a specific thing that he's tackling here.
It's just the right kind of dorky and nerdy to suit his style. It just works very well. And again, the juxtaposition of this type of a song being used to lament someone who doesn't understand the appeal of Eddie Vedder is great. Like, it works. It's just this wonderful clash of the two different ideas. Like, of course, the guy who wrote this song would not appreciate Pearl Jam.
Yeah. No, 100%.
Like, of course he wouldn't. We also just absolutely must, because when these like beautifully dated references come up, we have to talk about She Caught Me Hanging Out at the Ticketmaster.
Yeah. The idea that you would go to the building Ticketmaster anymore is...
As I read the lyrics and listened to this song this morning, I just was struck by the idea of, like, there was a time where Ticketmasters had physical locations. Now, they weren't like storefronts of their own, but you would go into a record shop and they would have a computer. Or like Sears or Macy's, or department stores had like a section in the middle of the store that was a computer that was connected to the Ticketmaster server that would allow someone to buy a ticket and they would print it out. But you would line up. People would line up when it's like, oh, the show goes on sale on Friday, and people would go to Macy's to buy concert tickets. That is just feels... It is hard for me to believe that existed in my lifetime. That was something I actually did a few times. I did.
Can I tell you something that I like realized the other day and it blew my mind?
Yeah.
Like, our grandparents grew up before there were 50 states in the United States. Like, how hard is that to think about and like wrap your head around?
Time is weird, man. Time is weird. I mean, it's a lot happens all the time, and it's, I don't know, it's very easy for us to make. I think our brains just don't work a certain way.
Thought about that
our
the
measure
other day.
Of time doesn't make sense. Yeah,
I thought about that the other day. That was like the mid 50s, I want to say, when we got, when we got Alaska. I'm like, that's crazy. My dad was a 1-year-old when when we became.
Yeah, they had to change the flag. I know,
so
it's just
think about.
It's wild, and we're gonna see it more and more. Like, I'm 38 years old, and I now meet people, working professional people who I play music with, who were not alive for 9/11.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, man. Like, it is just, I guess this is just all part of getting older. And, I've heard a million times how weird it is to get older, and now I'm experiencing it, but it's strange.
Hey, it's Emma Chamberlain. I designed these new glasses for Warby Parker, and I basically can't take them off. Like, I'm showering in them and sleeping in them. They're just that good. Go see them all at warbyparker.com. And you know what? Have a good day too. Okay? All right? Bye.
The #1 selling product of its kind with over 20 years of research and innovation. Botox Cosmetic, onabotulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
Are you troubled by trying to find a great movie podcast to listen to?
Do you experience a love for monster movies, from the classic Universal era to the modern creature features?
Have you or your family ever watched episodes of Elvira, Monster Vision, or Svengoolie?
If the answer is yes, then don't wait another minute. Open up your podcatcher and search for the professionals. The Monster Rally Podcast.
Our hilarious and asinine hosts have an ever-growing library of episodes for you to listen to 24 hours a day to serve all your monster movie needs.
We'll talk about it.
I'm already seeing it happen with me and Barb's kids, where I'm just like, you've never heard of, someone who's probably not even that famous in the grand scheme, but I'm just like, you've never heard of Spike Jonze, the music video director, and they're like, what's a music video? Like, what?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And there's also just this thing of it's okay for, I was talking about this in the context of a current pop artist who I won't even bother. It doesn't matter who it is, but and someone was saying how they sound so similar to all of these other things, and that they don't understand the appeal of this person who's making music that feels like it's been done before. And I just was like, but it hasn't been done before for kids who are 15 now. They haven't heard. I mean, some of them will do research and go on Spotify and dig through music history and find these examples, but plenty of them are going to latch on to it's fine. It's weird as you get older, you realize that there are kids now who were born already in the middle of even Lady Gaga's career.
Yeah.
So she's old. That's not a current person. And so it's everyone's going to have their own. It's fine to let a younger generation find these things, even if it's been done before. Who cares? Let them have it. Let them enjoy it.
And I kind of look. There's also something that I fully support, because yes, is there a chance that you walk up to a random kid on the street and do they not know something that was really important to you and could not care less because it was way before their time? Yes, but similarly to how you and I have this insane knowledge of music because we did care enough to go back and listen to the 70s stuff and listen to the 60s stuff. And there's always going to be generations of kids who give a shit about that stuff.
And some kids from this generation will do that exact thing over time. And they'll get into it. They'll do this exploration and stuff. Yeah, for sure.
And it's that's cool. I like the idea of being able to share that with somebody. And be like, hey, here's this thing that was super important to me. I hope you all love it.
It was one of my favorite things when I used to work at the record store of a young kid would come in and would pick up a really classic record that they had not heard before and would take it home and then come back a week later and be like, oh my God, Fleetwood Mac's really good. Yeah, they are. They're really good.
This showed up.
It's wonderful.
This showed up on my my TikTok the other day, but it was a guy talking about getting his first Black Flag record. Have you did this at all stumble?
I didn't see this. No.
I should have sent it to you. He's like, here's a story of discovering new music. And he's like, I was at the record store. I was looking for something to check out. And I found a Black Flag record. And everybody had been telling me how great Black Flag was. They're like, oh my God, the music you love. This is what set it up. And there was this TV party record, and I bought it because it was cheap. And he's like, and I put it on.
I can tell where this is going, yeah.
He's like, I put it on, and I was like, this is the worst thing I've ever heard. And I told all my friends that, this is terrible. And they were like, no, you got to listen to it again. And I was with my friend, and I put it on, and it's TV party. And my friend walks over and flicks the switch so that it properly plays a 45 instead of a regular record. And then I was like, oh yeah, this is great.
That's excellent. That's funny. I actually thought you were going to go another way and say that he was like, oh, you should get into Black Flag, and he picked up an album like Family Man, which is just Henry Rollins telling a horror story over noise in the background. I was like,
well, that's
oh God.
I have a record, a CD my friend gave me that I think is fairly rare. It's a Kurt Cobain album with William S. Burroughs.
Yeah, I know that record.
Yeah.
I know that record.
It's just a 10-minute instrumental collage with William S. Burroughs telling a random story over top of it.
Yeah, he's reading poetry or whatever he wrote, and then Kurt is just doing crazy background noise and almost like a score. Yeah. To the record, but I mean,
that was that era, man. That's that Black Flag influence. That's the stuff that I hope happens again. I would love for a world where all of a sudden Chapel Roan puts out some random album that's just 15 minutes of noise with her monologuing. And it challenges maybe a whole generation of listeners for a little bit. It's do it up, be weird. It's streaming.
Absolutely,
the era of streaming, you've got no reason not to just take a big swing and be weird. Fucking Taylor Swift
totally
put
agree.
out 42 tracks one morning and just
Oh
called
my
it
God.
a day. Like,
Yeah. And you know, to swing it back around, these kids who are going to go out and discover music on Spotify or whatever, like funny enough, of a younger generation who, you know, were barely alive for September 11th, I have heard plenty of them are starting to get into music from, to swing it right back around, the 90s and like Pearl Jam and grunge acts, because this music now sounds so different than anything currently on the radio, that if you're interested in rock, you go back to the early 90s and you're like, oh my God, like this was just what people listen to. And it's like, yeah, it is. It's crazy.
Well, let's do the last verse and then we'll dive into this, because the last verse he says is, well, I don't wear Doc Martens and I don't wear flannel and I don't boycott the music video channel. And I can't compete with all that money and fame, but I know two can play at this kind of game. Well, let's just see how jealous she'll get when I start stalking Alanis Morissette. And then we dive into the chorus one last time. And I don't think there's anything new. I think the only one is
when she was mine, but now I better just forget her.
He repeats that one again, and then he adds in, well, if she wants to leave, I guess I better let her, because my baby's in love with Eddie Vedder. Yeah, I think I mean, you know that I am like I ride on this particular genre of music a lot, but like 90s rock, that early 90s grunge into what was like the mid to late 90s alternative scene is just like, it is such its own weird, unique bubble where it doesn't really sound like anything else. Like, it wears its influences on its sleeve, but it's such a combination of all these different influences thrown together that it's like, even within grunge, every one of those bands sounds so different. You will never mistake a Soundgarden song for a Nirvana song or a Pearl Jam song for an Alice in Chains song. Like, they are just all doing their own thing. It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. And you know what, baby? I'm in love with Eddie Vedder, too. And I think it's time that we rank this song. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I mean, I was going to say, funny enough, I have, and I think I've mentioned this before, but like, grunge has actually kind of escaped me. Like, I don't mind it and I appreciate it for what it is, but I have always thought that like most grunge music to me has felt like you had to be there at the moment to fully appreciate the whole thing. At least to me, I just was like, there are certain things that I feel like you can look back on with historical context and be like, okay, I can appreciate that this was visionary and this was unique and ahead of its time and whatnot. But now it just doesn't, it's not going to resonate with me the same way because I've heard too much past it for it to be as surprising. So I would not describe myself as much of a Pearl Jam fan or much of a grunge fan at all. And maybe that's why I enjoy this Zydeco version of a Pearl Jam story so much, because I really think this is great. I also want to point out one other little reference that Al makes in this that I like, which is the, we talked about the Ticketmaster thing and the physical stores and all that stuff, but the reason why he references that we were headed for disaster when she caught me hanging out at the Ticketmaster, because Pearl Jam was maybe the first band to boycott Ticketmaster.
Yeah. And it caused a lot of issues for fans for a while.
They didn't play in North America for years. Yeah. Because they would not play a Ticketmaster venue, and Ticketmaster owns every venue. Yeah, I mean, they owned every venue in the 90s, and they still do.
They essentially were playing shows where they were like secret shows in basements at max, because they had to be like creative with how they could do it. The other thing that's worth calling out too, while you're talking about that from a contextual standpoint, is the boycott the music video channel, which Pearl Jam's early music videos are usually brought up in the conversation of greatest music videos of all time, specifically Jeremy and even Flow. And then immediately after that, they just were like, we're done with videos. And they, I think, made one other music video throughout the rest of their career, and it was mostly because it was part of like a project that they were doing. They felt like music videos, they kind of just took the Buggles attitude of like the videos killing the radio star. Like, people are listening to music more because they're attracted to the people in the band than anything else. They want the music to speak for themselves. So the only video that I remember them doing after their debut record was like 5 album cycles later for Do the Evolution. They had Todd McFarlane animate a full like dystopian future cartoon that went along with the song.
Across their entire career, Pearl Jam have made 4 music videos.
Yeah.
Jeremy, Even Flow, Alive.
And Do the Evolution, I guess.
And Do the Evolution, that's right.
So, and that one, I feel like they only did it because they weren't going to be in the video, and that the video was adding subtext and a message to their song. And I think that was the only reason why they like made that one-time exception with that song. And that song rips, by the way, if people aren't familiar with it. That is a
I'm
great
just realizing,
song.
I'm just sorry to interrupt. The link I just pulled up, there might have been a couple more videos. I'm now seeing that maybe there were, but they're like live videos that like, do they count maybe-ish, like a live concert video thing?
MTV, I am positive, pulled the same trick that they did after Kurt died, where they were like, oh no, there's not going to be any more Nirvana videos, but they did do this unplugged performance for us, so let's isolate as many of those segments as possible and play them, because I'm pretty sure when the song Black, which is my personal favorite Pearl Jam song, when that was like a radio song, I think they would play the unplugged performance of it pretty regularly on MTV or stuff like that, but I don't think those are official videos that they like.
Yeah, looking at the list now, a lot of them say live video, so I think maybe that was, it's possible that was not even in their control, but they definitely did not like videos.
No.
So they were trying to avoid that. And they were, they were sort of, I guess maybe that's the real, like Eddie was at least sort of bitter and artsy enough that he didn't want to do those sorts of things. He boycotted MTV. That's why this guy is just so annoyed.
Which I think there's a chance, I don't think that it's guaranteed, but I think that there's a chance that might be the only lyric where Al actually is Al the character a little bit in his snarkiness, because like, I mean, motherfucker loves a music video.
Like, he does seem to enjoy a music video. I mean, music videos, I mean, they might not make sense to Pearl Jam, but for Al, they were definitely
essential
help him
to
drive
his
a point home. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, ranking this, I'm going way higher than I would have thought I would ever rank this song in 1999 when I first heard this album.
Ooh.
It's not breaking a top 10 or anything, but I'm putting it in between One More Minute and Trigger Happy in the upper echelon of my Weird Al original songs rankings.
That's great. That's a very high ranking. I am going to not put it quite that high, although I really do. I mean, we're getting to the point, we've said it a million times, I'm going to say it one more time, which is we're getting to the point now where it's like my favorite Al songs that I think are just fantastic feel like they're approaching the middle, but I think that's just high middle because I'm enjoying everything so much. I'm going to put Eddie Vedder, I'm going to put it in between Since You've Been Gone and Velvet Elvis.
Okay. Boop. Got it.
Yeah, it's kind of like just below my Christmas cluster. But no, I really think this is great. And honestly, from a musical perspective, I'm so grateful that this exists, because I want more songs where Al is just kind of like being himself and getting to show. This just feels like such a fun, I've said this a few times, where like there's songs where I just feel like what I hear is the sound of Al and his band having a really good time.
Yeah.
And that's what this song sounds like to me. This sounds like a labor of love and just like a joy to do. They did this song live on the Vanity Tour a whole bunch of times, so I think they still really enjoy it, which makes me very happy. Yeah, it's great. Really, really good.
All right. And next week, we'll be back with another Weird Al song that I won't say anything about.
We don't need to. We'll save it for next week. Yeah.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.